Hey everyone, it's Anchorpete, and welcome to a new episode. We are here with a special surprise. I actually have my wife here with us today. That's my
Hello.
that's my wife Shari, and she is up in her bedroom, and I am down in our kitchen. And we are just filming this the way that I film most of my interviews or sessions where I'm talking with my friends. Shari is here today with me to talk about the movie that just came out called The Rental. Shari, how's it going so far tonight?
It's going fine.
That's good. How do you feel being on my side of the bed near my books and with David Lynch right behind you?
I mean, if I was going to do this in the future, I would probably have my own books behind me. But I'm good with David Lynch. I'm a fan as well.
For this particular movie, I hadn't really heard of it on Twitter or anything like that, and then Shari brought it to my attention, and so I was intrigued from the get-go. So the movie just came out in 2020. This movie is actually the first time that Dave Franco, brother of James Franco, has directed a movie. And he wrote it with a guy named Joe Swanberg. Have you ever heard that name, Shari?
No.
Joe Swanberg actually is a writer and a director and a producer, and he's actually worked with a lot of people that you like Lena Dunham and Greta Gerwig and the Duplass brothers too.
Oh, yeah? What's he done?
I don't know. It had a whole list of like indie movies and stuff on his IMDb. Actually, a lot of stuff I didn't recognize. But what they said on his Wikipedia was that he kind of was helpful in getting Greta Gerwig's career up and running, and Lena Dunham's too.
Okay, cool. I'm a fan of both those ladies. Yeah.
The cast is really small for this movie. There's only 5 characters in the whole thing, and like I said before, Dan Stevens is in it. You and I saw him in that movie, The Guest, right?
Yes. And Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
But I want to add, before all of those, he was in Downton Abbey, and he was a fan favorite, and he, died in a car crash. It was quite dramatic and terrible. He actually asked to quit Downton Abbey at the height of his fame and his popularity because he wanted to do movies.
I think he's a pretty recognizable face at this point. Like you said, he's in Beauty and the Beast. He's in a lot of things, even if he's just like a supporting player. Alison Brie, like you said, is in it too. Then there's Sheila Vand, who we didn't recognize, right? And she's
right.
the main characters in the movie. She plays Mina. Then there's also Jeremy Allen White, who plays Dan Stevens' brother in the movie. And I recognized his face, but I didn't really know what movie he was in. But he's in that show, Shameless.
I've heard of Shameless, but I've never watched it, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't think he seemed like a rookie, so I'm not surprised he has experience.
And last but not least, there's Toby Russ, and he is, once again, he's a character that you see as a supporting character in a lot of movies. Just from what I can remember off the top of my head, he's in the new version of Halloween that came out last year. And then he's also in the movie The Invitation. But the reason why I brought up The Invitation too is because just like The Guest, this movie kind of reminded me of the Invitation as well, where it's just this kind of low budget thriller, and the beginning portion of it doesn't necessarily seem like a horror movie, but then once you get towards the conclusion, that's when it really starts to feel like a horror. The Invitation also is like a movie that Shari and I both love, and we saw it together, and we're big fans of it. From this point on, as Shari and I talk, there's going to be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, just go ahead and rent it. We rented it on Amazon Prime, and then come back and watch this video. So Shari, I've compared this movie to other movies that I've seen. What could you compare this movie to other movies that you've seen?
I have 2 movies that come to mind specifically. One is just like your basic slasher, original Friday the 13th, where there's people in jeopardy and a masked killer out to get them. But also maybe like Psycho because of the voyeur factor. In the movie, someone is spying on the 4 people that have rented this house, and they're not sure who it is. But anyway, voyeurism's a big deal in the movie. It's very important.
Yeah.
So of course, Psycho, the original voyeur horror movie, comes to mind.
I think those are really apt comparisons, because it almost feels like an evolution of Psycho, and it feels like doing a new twist on a slasher film too. Because
what's new about it?
With Psycho, right? Essentially, that would be someone staying in a hotel, and the fears of being in a hotel and someone spying on you, and that you're staying in a hotel and that the person working there is a creep/murderer, right? Or motel. This movie, it's a more modern thing. We have our Airbnb now in our modern days, which you and I have gone to a whole bunch of those. And it's
Yeah.
the fear of being spied on while you're in your Airbnb.
So it's slightly updated from hotel to Airbnb, which is interesting about this movie. It could only be made in this time that we have where we can rent homes the way we do. I mean, 5-10 years ago, Airbnb wasn't even a thing really. So yeah, it's specifically made to affect people in this day and age, right?
Yeah, and then I think that like the killer, the bad guy that we see basically at the end, I mean, we're just jumping right into spoilers right here. You can see that he's kind of made for this age too, this specific killer.
He capitalizes on Airbnb guests for sure by being a guest.
I really liked that idea of the killer. And, you know, since we're already spoiling things, the killer lives. And I'm totally cool with there being other, like there's sequels to this movie with the same kind of setup. So we've already mentioned our actors in the movie, right? And so the characters are Charlie by Dan Stevens, Alison Brie plays Michelle, Sheila Vand plays Mina, and Jeremy Allen White plays Josh, okay? And Charlie and Josh are brothers. Charlie seems to be a successful businessman. They never really go into detail about what he does, but he seems very successful and has some money. And Mina is his partner, and he constantly refers to her as his partner. And you can tell right from the very first shot that there's something going on between these two, where it might be that they're more than just business partners.
Yeah, just the opening scene is her with her head resting on his shoulder, and they're picking out a vacation rental together, and you think they're a couple. I mean, it's set up to make you think they're a couple. Then the brother walks in, she detaches herself from Dan Stevens and goes and kisses the brother, so you're kind of confused. Then you find out that she is with the brother and she's partnered to Dan Stevens, but they're weirdly close. I think it's interesting that this is a movie kind of about brothers and issues between brothers, and it's directed by is it Dave Franco?
Dave Franco.
Yeah, well, he's got a famous brother. He's actually got two brothers, but yeah. It makes me wonder about brother issues at home. I always think about those things, how much the director's personal experience plays in.
You know, you're always wondering, is there going to be something going on between the two of them? And you feel like you can predict it. And a lot of this movie is kind of predictable, but I do think it shifts gear towards the middle. So they get this expensive, nice rental house. Josh, the younger brother, brings a dog with him. And Charlie, the older brother's upset because he's like, they explicitly said no pets allowed. Like, please, like, why'd you bring a dog? We're gonna get in trouble. The younger brother doesn't care. And when they get there, they interact with this guy named Taylor. And Taylor just kind of seems like sort of a curmudgeon-y guy that might have racist views. And even though he's acting pleasant, you can tell that there's something below the surface with this guy. And it's his brother's house that they're renting out. He just shows the people around and how to work things in the house.
Is he racist though? The girl in the movie who's suspicious that he is it her? Just imagining it? You know, they never really confirmed that. That's ambiguous.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it so much of it is speculation at first on her part, because what happens is Mina applied for the house first to get the rental house, and so she's turned down, and then Charlie applies pretty much right after she does, and he is given access to the house. So she thinks that it's a racist thing because she is from the Middle East. Her family's like of Middle Eastern descent. She even confronts the guy Taylor right before he's about to leave, and it's this really awkward scene. And he basically just kind of writes it off like, I'm not the one that does the booking, my brother does. And if you don't like this house, you can leave, basically. At one point, they all decide to do drugs, but Alison Brie's character, Michelle, says, I'm pretty beat. I'm not going to be able to do drugs. And so they all do ecstasy, and they get into this point where Dan Stevens, Charlie, and Mina go into the hot tub, and they're in the hot tub together. You're like, okay, it's pretty much going to lead to something lewd, right? Eventually have a little romantic encounter in the bath, in the shower. And the only reason why I'm bringing any of this up is because it plays into the plot.
Any shower bath scene is very important to the plot.
Yeah, just like Psycho, too. Just like
Psycho, right.
Okay, so they get it on in the shower, and then the next morning, everyone's like kind of hungover, worn out. Michelle and Josh end up going on a hike, and they leave Charlie and Mina back at the house.
I want to say they are the most trusting partners ever. To constantly be leaving you know, these two characters who their girlfriend or their girlfriend and their spouse alone together when they have clearly such chemistry between them. So
Yeah.
I kind of roll my eyes at that. I mean, I don't know very many women who would be so blind.
We ended up making a lot of jokes about it together, like while we were watching the movie. It kind of took us out of the movie a little bit because it just seemed like they were too trusting, right?
Right. The Alison Brie character is very sweet, seems like a good person, but she just has no concern about her husband being so close with this other woman. She's just super trusting. And of course, she's wrong to trust him so much. The brother does express some concern, but he's pretty trusting as well.
Mina discovers that there's actually a video camera in the shower head. Now they're thinking, oh God, this guy is taping us. If we go to confront him about it, he can just show, you know, your wife and my boyfriend the footage. We're going to be in so much trouble. And what happens is the dog goes missing. And Josh, the younger brother, thinks, okay, well, this guy, he was acting shady. He probably took the dog. And Alison Brie, Michelle, she eventually does drugs just by herself. She calls the guy to the house to fix the hot tub. He comes over, and while he is fixing the hot tub, Mina confronts him again.
Which apparently they broke when they were messing around in it. I don't know why the hot tub was suddenly broken when they were using it the night before.
There's definitely some plot contrivances, that's for sure, just to kind of move things along. Mina confronts the guy and shows him the camera in the shower, and then he kind of physically grapples with her because he's trying to call the cops himself. And the guy, Josh, sees that. He runs in, starts pummeling him, and everyone's freaking out. It looks like that the guy Taylor might be dead.
And I want to point out he gets beat up in that very same shower.
Yeah.
So it's like an important, it was also recorded.
What ends up happening is that we find out that there is another person altogether that is the one that's been spying on them while they're in this house. He comes in, and while everyone's arguing outside, and he kills the unconscious Taylor in the bathroom. And from that point on, the movie kind of becomes like a traditional slasher movie. Do you like the fact that it became like a slasher at that point?
I was okay with it because I was expecting some horror, maybe more of a thriller. It became pretty much, like I said, a Friday the 13th type thing. I was okay with it, except I wanted the killer to have motivation. And I have no idea what that person's motivation was ever. They never do reveal any motivation except that he's just some sort of creep who takes advantage of Airbnb renters. That doesn't sit well with me. I'm much more interested in villains who have a reason. Even Jason in Friday the 13th has a reason, you know, being revenge. So what's with this killer? It's a big problem for me. That killer was a blank. I needed more information on him.
I felt like his motivation for killing these specific people was because they were going to expose his operation. Whether like it was directly that they exposed it or indirectly they exposed it. And that might set off a whole chain where other Airbnbs start to like look for these cameras and stuff.
Do you think he just wanted to video record people in their homes and never reveal himself?
Okay, so that's a great question.
Is he just a voyeur and a pervert? I mean,
what I took from it at first was that he was like a dangerous voyeur and pervert, right? Who's willing to be violent to cover up things, right? But I was going to say that the very last shot of the movie, which takes place during the end credits,
right,
makes it seem like it's something else.
Yeah, it makes it seem like he's a serial killer.
During the end credits, they show other sequences of people being spied on in their Airbnbs. And we know it's this guy watching them. And it's always camera footage of them like making food together, watching TV. Someone is like typing on their computer on the toilet, right? The very last shot, which was a pretty disturbing shot that kind of made me have some trouble sleeping last night.
Yeah.
Was that it's just a woman sleeping, and it's a close-up of her, and there's an open closet beyond her, and he just runs in towards her, and then the screen goes blank.
Can I just add at this moment that I really liked the end credits. It's kind of a weird thing to, you know, say you enjoyed a lot, but the end credits were quite creepy.
Yeah.
And I almost think they were better than the movie. Like maybe they deserved a better movie. Anyway, they just showed some creativity and that I wanted from the movie that I didn't get. And I thought they were like quietly creepy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which I didn't really get from the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, like right around the time that found footage movies were really taking off, like, you know, Wreck or like Paranormal Activity, movies like that, I thought that reckon that's in Spanish. It's quarantine in the United States. But with those movies, I always thought it'd just be creepy to just have a movie that's just all footage of like random scenes like that, like we just saw in these credits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like just creep, and then you just see a little creepy thing at the end, right? Like right now we're having this discussion, and all of a sudden there's like a face right here in the glass, you know?
That would be disturbing. Yeah, that would be very upsetting.
What did you think the end of the movie was gonna be when you were watching the buildup of it? Did you expect the ending to be the way it was?
Yeah, it was pretty predictable, I thought. I did think they had some effective jump scares. They scared me probably 3 or 4 times, and I thought the guy's mask was creepy. And I thought it was good. It was scary. It was a question of, was the one kind of virgin girl character, even though she wasn't, is she going to live or was she going to die? And I wasn't sure what was going to happen with her. I do think they left it open since she went over a cliff and no body was shown. Other than that, I thought it was pretty predictable. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
What I thought was that it was going to be the guy Taylor was going to be this voyeur, and he was going to be the main threat. And then when they showed another person kill him, I was like, whoa, okay, this is different. And I was like, it can't be his brother, because why would his brother kill him?
You're asking about motivation. They never do supply it. So, I mean, the brother is the only person they mention in this movie besides the 5 characters that are shown. So it's the only person it seemed like it could have been.
Yeah.
But they do imply it's not the brother.
The reason why I kind of like this killer, and I would be down for sequels, is because it reminds me of like these lizards, or maybe it's even a type of bird. It's either a bird or a lizard, but basically they put the eggs of either the bird or the lizard in the nest of birds, and then it like wakes up and it cracks out of the egg and eats the other eggs. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The cuckoo bird.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So like that's what this killer reminded me of, because essentially it's not like you're going into the person's house and the people that you're going, like the owners of the house are the creeps. That's not the case. It's that like this guy goes into the house before you, like infests it with his spy technology, and then he's there. And so I really think that's great. And for me, for like a guy who's been to a bunch of Airbnbs, like I always kind of have the feeling that I'm being spied on to begin with.
Yeah, I know that would be effective with you, because when we travel, you do always kind of have these thoughts that never occur to me, because I'm the opposite of you. You're always under the assumption that you're in danger, whereas I'm always under the assumption that I'm safe.
We balance each other out.
Yeah, balance.
I would be down for there to be sequels, right? And
there was I'm not. I don't think it was good enough.
Okay. Do you remember there's one part that I felt was like really misleading? I didn't tell it to you last night. And one thing I should tell the viewers too is that we've actually not discussed the movie in person. This is our first time talking about it.
It was very difficult to not talk about it all day.
Throughout the whole movie, there's this little door that's underneath the rental house, and it has a code. And eventually they try to figure out the code because they think that might have the footage of their stay there. And so they're trying to get in, and eventually Josh, the younger brother, knocks the handle off the door, and they break into this room, and it's just kind of like a storage room with all junk in it, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there's 2 things, right? Do you remember at one point he looks at some pictures, and he's like, oh, and he like puts them down?
Yeah, and she says, what's that? And he's like, you don't want to know.
Stuff like that, little things like that add to the creep factor, and it's real interesting. I feel like that makes it a little bit more complex and interesting, because it's like, what did they look at, right? But then it's almost like a red herring. And then the thing right after it is even more of a red herring, because like a door opens up just by itself.
Yeah, it squeaks open. Yeah.
Yeah. And the killer's already messing with people at this point. Like he's already playing the video footage on the TV for Alison Brie to discover. He's doing all little manipulative things. And so it seems like he opened up the door, but then before Josh can go in that room, he gets called out, and there's like, they never address it again.
It is a red herring. I think it's like a creepy moment. You expect them to find something in that locked little room down there, and they never do. It never leads to anything. Yeah. This is one of the reasons I don't think this is that great a movie. Like, it seems like a waste of a scene.
Do you think that room was used by the killer? Do you think that was just some random room that it's connected to the guy's house and has nothing to do with the killer? What do you think, based on what you saw?
I think it was a room they used for storage that they didn't want guests going into. We've stayed in many Airbnbs. There's often a closet. There's sometimes a basement that is locked up that the guests aren't supposed to go in. And I assume it's just their things that they've stored in there. But one thing this movie surprised me with was the dog lived. When the dog goes missing, you assume it's gonna be dead, you know. But they have like a nice little scene at the end where the dog walks up to the killer and is kind of upset and sad, and the killer actually pets the dog, and then the dog just walks away with its tail between its legs. I did like that. That was a good little moment, I thought.
I don't know. I thought there were a couple of good moments. I thought that the little montage sequence at the end where the killer is taking all of his surveillance equipment out, I thought that was a good touch. I think that like his mask, the way he looked, was very creepy, and you don't see him kill every person. Like one thing that happens is for Alison Brie, there's this great scene where her car, the tires get popped, and she's like on the side of the road. Before she can go back to the house, you just see a figure running up to her window.
Yeah.
And that was nice, and that was a good scare. And then the one scare I think probably got you the most, maybe I'm wrong, but there's the scene where like Dan Stevens and the other two, the brother and his girlfriend, are walking, and the killer's just like behind them.
Yeah, he's just kind of casually walking up behind them. Yeah, that did scare me. The scene you mentioned where he's running at her while she's sitting in the car scared me too. Yeah, there are definitely scary moments, and I think, you know, people looking for that kind of thing will maybe enjoy this. I'm just saying they set up this kind of, like you said, a contrived plot that where if any of the characters had just called the cops when they found the camera, or if, you know, when the first person went missing or something, if they had just acted differently, this killer couldn't have changed the outcome.
Yeah.
You know, it was very dependent on them doing nothing to help themselves. He couldn't have gotten away with it. I also wonder, why is this killer videotaping them and then worried about showing the wife that her husband's cheating? Why is this even his interest or concern, especially if he's just going to kill them? So these kinds of little things where I don't understand the killer's motivation, it's a big deal to me. It makes a difference in how much I can enjoy the picture. When you think about the best villains, I don't know, like Hannibal Lecter, and, you know, I want to know more about them.
Right.
And they let you know so little, they don't even show his face.
Well, I'm pretty sure that it's Dave Franco that is the killer, at least in the shots where you see him from the back of the head. And Dave Franco has said, I read that he kind of left it open to where there could be sequels. I'd totally be down with that. So it sounds like you weren't totally into the movie, but like, would you recommend it to people that are fans of certain types of movies? Yeah,
if you just want to see something that scares you, I do think it's effectively scary. I think it takes a little bit of time to get going.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get scary maybe till like the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It spends some time building up like dread and unease about the landlord. You know, the more we're talking about it, the more I'm kind of feeling like, yeah, it's better than like, it's not a piece of shit, you know?
I know.
There's some thought and that goes into the writing and the dialogue and what happens. I'm just a little disappointed that they didn't do more with it, maybe. What's your scale? You use Clemmy's?
Well, when I do these shows with other people, I don't usually use the Clemmy scale. If you want to do it, since you literally gave birth to Clemmy, you can do the Clemmy scale if you want.
Oh, thank you. Do you have 5 Clemmy's is the best? 5
Clemmy's is the best. You can use like half Clemmy's too. Hopefully we'll never see a half Clemmy in our life.
I would probably give it 2.5 Clemmy's.
2.5? Ooh. Okay. That's.
Well, come on, it's not the worst. It's not 1. It's not the best. You know.
Okay.
I think it was kind of an average horror movie.
I think it's better than a slasher. I think it's better than a regular slasher, a generic slasher. I think there's more thought to it. So if I was going to use my Clemmy scale, I would give it. I'll do 3.5. I'll do 3.5.
Okay. Yeah. So we both had half Clemmy's.
Half Clemmy's, yeah. We're lucky that there was not a full Clemmy crying or calling out for us while we were doing this.
Yes.
So if you just move your head towards the window, see that guy right behind you? There's a couple of no, I don't mean the killer. I mean David Lynch. What I'm saying is that guy, David Lynch, I have a couple of his movies that are either I'm gonna rent or they're coming from the library. I got Wild at Heart, I got Inland Empire, and I got Fire Walk with Me. Do you have any interest in watching and talking about any of those movies?
Wild at Heart.
Wild at Heart?
Yes.
Okay, so that might be the next time you're on the show. And then otherwise, if there's some kind of like cool indie movie that you want to see, maybe we can talk about that.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, Peter.
Thank you for being married to me and being in our house, and cool. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.